said he wants to do philosophers. Okay. What page was that? Boop, 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 boop. 543. Okay, if he says poets and philosophers remember stories, what do you think that this section is going to be about? I'm asking Miles because he won't want to read it.
People that told those stories like just passed them down.
I can't hear you.
People that told stories just pass them down and tells them the exact thing that they.
You gotta look up at me so I can hear you. And the washing machine on, I can't hear you.
They listen to the story who originally told them, and they pass it down to a different generation, and they tell from what they remember.
Okay, so people that collect the stories and pass it on to the rest of the world.
Yes.
All right, so it says poets and philosophers remember stories. What you think it is?
I think it is where if someone told them that story, they try to remember the story so they can write down the story.
Okay. So it says meditations on African American lore. There's a quote. There are two lasting gifts we can give our children. One is roots, the other is wings. Y'all understand that?
No.
Okay. So it says two lasting gifts. You know what a gift is, right?
Yeah.
All right. We can give our children. One is roots. Now, what does it mean? Give your children roots.
Like culture.
Culture. Good answer. Mouse.
Like.
Put your hair at your face. Thank you.
Giving them some type of story or some type of thing to remember them.
To remember them. Who is them?
Or a story.
A story.
Or something that happened
Something that happened. Roots. Roots would be your ancestors, your family lineage, the history of the people, the culture, things of that.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. All right. And the other is wings. What does that mean?
I'm not sure about that one.
Not sure about that one. Math.
Same.
Wings, the ability to fly. Do it mean fly in a literal sense?
No.
So what does it mean?
Maybe let them have their own creative mind. Like if you tell them a story, they might alter the story to everyone else.
They might alter it to do what?
They might alter the story, not remembering their part, or adding their own parts to it.
Different letters, different languages.
Different letters, different languages. The ability to go out and create.
And different slang.
And different slang. Yeah. The ability to go out and create and be free. And be able to survive and thrive in the world. The ability to go out and flourish. So, when y'all start producing children, you should give them roots and give them wings. Okay. So it says, folklore is boiled down juice of human living. It does not belong to any special time, place, nor people. No country is so primitive that it has no lore. and no country has yet become so civilized that no folklore is being made within its boundaries. What's lore?
Lord. Lord is like the stories that are told.
Lore is a story. Math, what's lore?
Some type of like art.
What kind of art? Like, how is that particular art distributed?
Like what happened to these specific people and
I
like
can't hear you.
what happened to these specific people and what bad things like came for them.
So it's like storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, is lore being created today?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Folklore is the Zora Neale Hurston. Y'all want to remember their name? Zora Neale Hurston. You're going to hear stories like Beloved, Tar Baby, The Bluest Eye. All of those are stories that Zora Neale Hurston created or passed on. It had to do with African American culture. So she's going to be a great, dare I say, anthropologist for African American literature and folklore. Okay? Even in the practice of hoodoo, you can get some good information from Zora Neale Hurston's writings. Okay? So it says Zora Neale Hurston, Go Gator and Muddy the Water. Writings by Zora Neale Hurston from the Federal Writers Project. It says we have been exiled in our own land, and for our efforts at writing, we have been. Have a good day. Oh, it's good. We have been little better than silent because we have not been cunning. I find this rather astounding because I feel that Negro American folklore is very powerful, wonderful, and universal. And it became so by expressing a people who were assertive, eclectic, and irrelevant before all the oral and written literature that came within its grasp. What's assertive? Assertive is like stern. For lack of a better definition, it's standing on your square. You know what that means?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what that means, Math?
Like the tip of your tongue.
What?
Tip on, like the tip, like it's on your tip of your tongue.
Assertive, being firm. If I said to you, hey, clean up that room, is that assertive?
Pretty much.
That's assertive. Eclectic. That's an interesting word. What do you think eclectic means?
It sounds like collect, but I'm not sure if it is.
It sounds like what?
Collect.
Okay. That's a good that's a good guess. Okay, eclectic. It says, Mal, what do you think eclectic means?
Some type of space word.
I can't hear you.
Some type of space word.
Some type of space word? Eclectic is an adjective. Definition: deriving ideas, style, or taste from a broad and diverse range of sources. 2. Falls under philosophy. It says denoting or belonging to a class of ancient philosophers who did not belong to or found any recognized school of thoughts, but selected doctrines from various schools of thoughts. Okay, so this is going to be a broad perspective of taste, just basically well-rounded grasp of literature. Now, where does African American folklore come from? How were stories passed on before people started writing them down?
They'll tell the story to different people.
And who was telling the stories?
Not what that storytelling thank you was called.
What? How did they tell the stories? What is that called? Storytelling or oral tradition. Oral tradition. Most of our philosophies culturally and schools of thoughts and how we see ourselves in the world came passed down to generation through oral tradition, told by the storyteller or the griots. Y'all remember that word?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. So they had to be assertive, eclectic, and they were irrelevant before our oral and written literature came within its grasp. Okay? It took what it needed to express its sense of life and rejected what it could not use. What we've achieved in folklore has seldom been achieved in the novel, the short story, or the poetry. In folklore, we tell what Negro experience really is. We back away from the chaos of experience and from ourselves, and we depict the humor as well as the horror of living. We project Negro life in a metaphysical perspective, and we have seen it with a complexity of vision that seldom gets into our writing. What's the difference between a folklore versus a story or a novel?
Folklore is more of like somewhat culture thing.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Folklore can be more graphic than like normal storytelling.
More graphic?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's like a satellite that came.
It's like a what?
Like a satellite came over to us and we all saw it. I wonder, why is it here? Is it here to tell us something?
Okay. So folklore is going to give you a more realistic viewpoint of life and reality than you could get from a story. You know, it's gonna have deeper meanings.
Yeah.
Ralph Ellison, another writer, y'all probably should get familiar with. And if y'all don't grace these writers at school, because it's a high possibility that y'all may not because of where we are, then your mother will be introducing them to you by the time you get to high school. Okay. Ralph Ellison, A Very Stern Discipline, Harper's March, 1967. I use folklore in my work not because I am Negro, but because writers like Eliot and Joyce made me conscious of the literary value of my folklore inheritance. My cultural background, like that of most Americans, is dual. My middle name, sadly enough, is Waldo. I knew the trickster Ulysses just as early as I knew the wily rabbit of Negro American lore. I could easily imagine myself a pint-sized Ulysses, but hardly a rabbit, no matter how human or resourceful or Negro. My point is that the Negro American writer is also an heir of the human experience, which is literature. And this might be well more important to him than his living folk tradition. For me, at least. In this continuous, swiftly changing and diverse American culture, the stability of Negro American folk tradition became precious as a result of an act of literary discovery. Ralph Ellison. Change the joke and slip the yoke. In Shadow and Act, New York. Random House, 1964. So those are just some of the books that he wrote. So, Mal, what is he trying to say?
What you mean?
What did he say? Why do he use folklore in his writings? Do I need to read it again?
Yeah.
Ralph Ellison, very stern discipline. That's one of the books he wrote. This is what he said. He said, I use folklore in my work not because I am Negro, but because writers like Eliot and Joyce made me conscious of the literary value of my folk inheritance. My cultural background, like that of most Americans, is dual. My middle name, sadly, is Waldo. I knew the trickster Ulysses just as early as I knew the wily rabbit of Negro American lore. And I could easily imagine myself a paint-sized Ulysses, but hardly a rabbit, no matter how human and resourceful or Negro. My point is that the Negro American writer is also an heir of the human experience, which is literature, and this might well be more important to him than his living folk tradition. For me, at least, in the discontinuous, swiftly changing, and diverse American culture, the stability of the Negro American folk tradition became precious as a result of an act of literary discovery. So what is he saying?
He's pretty much saying that he's pretty much doing the same thing as other people.
Say what?
He's pretty much saying that he can do everything else as other people can.
And why is Negro folklore important?
So it can stay alive.
Okay. The next person is Toni Morrison. That's another author y'all want to go ahead and stick in your hats. Okay? Toni Morrison said, there are things I try to incorporate into my fiction that are directly and deliberately related to what I regard as the major characteristics of Black arts, wherever it is. One of which is the ability to be both print and oral literature. To combine those two aspects so that the story can be read in silence, of course, but one should be able to hear them as well. It should try deliberately to make you stand up and make you feel something profoundly in the same way that a Black preacher requires his congregation to speak, to join him in sermon, to behave in a certain way, to stand up and weep and to cry, and to exceed or to change and to modify, to expand on the sermon that is being delivered. What's she saying?
Expand, like,
to, like, if you're telling a story, you're trying to make it known as far as you can.
Okay.
pretty much expand it in your like own words, or like some type of context where it like makes sense to other people.
Make sense in what fashion? Should it just be something you understand? Or does it go past that?
It can be both.
Both? What is both?
Like, you can make it like some what you like see from it, but explain it kind of like in their own senses.
Okay, like a particular dialect.
I just make it Roblox animation out of it, and then just show it to other people, and say the context out of it. Then like makes sense to them.
Okay, that makes sense. So John Oliver, I don't know this author, but I'm pretty sure this is somebody that is an African American writer too. All of these are African American. Well, not all of them. A lot of them are African American writers, and some of them are just literary creators, right? So we have somebody by the name John Oliver, and he said, a little boy read numerous stories in his children's books about various life and death struggles between a man and a lion. But no matter how furiously, the lion fought, each time the man emerged victorious. This puzzled the boy, so he asked his father, why is it, Daddy, that in all these stories the man always beats the lion, when everybody knows that the lion is the toughest cat in all the jungle? The father answered, son, these stories will always end that way until the lion learns how to ride. What does that mean?
It means, like, if you put it in different perspectives, it might not always be the same as you think it will be. Because if someone else, if, like, you,
It's pretty much like taking others' ideas and then
Say that again.
it's pretty much taking other people's ideas or like what they made and like turn it to something that's like that looks like theirs, but it does not work out well.
Okay, what was you saying?
so, it's like, if you put it in a different person's perspective, like the lion, there might be something else that could beat him and not be the toughest cat.
Mm-hmm. So there's an expression. It says that history is always told from the perspective of the victor. So the people that have the perceived loss, oftentimes their stories get lost. One reason why we're reading these books and I tell y'all different stuff and we learn about different holidays because culturally speaking, essentially, we didn't quite win. So a lot of the things that y'all learn at home, y'all don't necessarily learn in school, right?
Yeah.
That's because we're not the victors. So our story isn't told. And so when the lion learns to write, the lion can tell his perspective.
Yeah.
I can see that because I literally was like working on like that one assignment, and then while I was working on that one assignment, I actually finally found a black person that was a slave, that was a scientist. It's like, why did I not know that? Why are they trying to hide it from us?
I don't think they necessarily trying to hide it, but if there aren't a lot of black people that are participating in writing the stories, then, you know, they kind of get written out of the stories. Right. Which is why we pay homage and we honor our storytellers because they keep the traditions alive and they keep our stories alive until we are in a place where our stories are just thriving. Got it? Okay. So we have a Mike Theowell, and he said after his father died and his mother went off to the north to find work, it was the old woman, pious and accepting, who had told him the old stories, raised him in the church, and interpreted for him the ways of the world. He remembered her story of how God had put two boxes into the world, one big and the other small. The first Negro and the first white man had seen the boxes at the same time and run towards them. But the Negro arrived first and greedily appropriated for himself the larger box. Unfortunately, this box contained a plow, a hoe, a crop axe, and a mule, while the smaller box contained a pen, paper, and a ledger book. And that's why the old woman will conclude her face serious. The nigga been a working ever since, and the white man, he wrecking up the crop. What just happened here?
So what just happened was when he went for the bigger box, it's not just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's always better.
Okay, that's what happened in the story. What else happened?
He saw it as like some type of he saw it as some type of expensive like things, and then when he got it.
What happened with the old lady?
She
Huh?
Wait, can you read it again?
After his father died, the mother went off to the north to find work. It was the old woman, pious and accepting, who told him the old stories, raised him in the church, and interpreted for him the ways of the world. He remembered her story of how God had put two boxes in the world, one big and the other small. The first Negro and the first white man had seen the boxes at the same time and runs towards them. But the Negro arrived first and greedily appropriated for himself the larger box. Unfortunately, this box contained a plow, a hoe, a crop axe, and a mule, while the smaller box contained a pen, paper, and a ledger book. And that's why the old woman would conclude, her face serious, the nigga been a working ever since, and a white man, he reckoned up the crop.
So, old lady was telling a story to him.
How was she telling the story?
Like,
What was significant about the way she spoke?
How greedy was like.
We got the story. We understand that the story is it was telling why the Negro held a certain position in society and the white man held a certain position in society. Right?
yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna pass y'all this book. Look at the last 3 sentences and then tell me what y'all noticed about how the lady spoke. It's over here.
I noticed.
You got it?
Yeah.
You get it?
Yes.
Pass me back the book. What did you get?
So the way that she was reading, saying the story,
Mm-hmm.
was like when you're talking to like a black person or a southern person, they're
Southern.
like
Right, hold it. Go ahead. What did you notice?
It's almost like they were like going to the boxes and like as one of them approached, one of them opened it and one of them got the bad omen, while the other one got the good omen.
Okay.
And the one that was walking with the bad omen, they were trying to work hard, but they never get out the pit, while the other one is like stays out the pit.
Okay, so what did you notice about the way that the old woman spoke, or the way that what she said was written?
Like what happened during the slave trade, or like something like that.
No. What did you notice about the way she spoke? Could you identify where she could have possibly came from by the way she spoke?
America?
Look at the last 3 sentences. Read it. Read it.
As his father died, his mother went off.
Last 3 sentences. Read it.
I don't know where the last 3 sentences are.
All you gotta do is find the period and go back. Start with unfortunately.
Unfortunately, this box contained a plow, a hoe,
A who?
a plow,
A plow.
a hoe, a crop axe, and a mule, while the smaller box contained a pen, paper, ledge book, and that's why the old woman, and that's why the old woman concluded her face serious. The nigger had been work, working ever since the white ran back up the crop.
What did you notice about the way she spoke?
Sounds like she's speaking like. Sounds like she was like speaking English, but almost it looks like she came from Africa.
Okay, so it looked like she spoke broken English. That's called vernacular or dialect. Different regions speak in different ways. And there will be vernacular and dialects. Now, vernacular and dialect not quite the same, but that's what it is. Vernacular and dialect are good aspects of folklore. It's what help you feel how real the tale is. You understand? All right. James Baldwin said, the key to a tale is to be found in who tells it. True or false? True. What do you think?
Read it again.
The key to a tale is to be found in who tells it.
True.
It will be true, because if the lions say that the human didn't win, but the human wrote the story, then we're looking at it from the human's perspective. If the language that the old woman used, if she was from up north, do you think she would have spoke that way? No. So that's a good point. So we have France Fanon. It says people will argue that this anecdote has not been verified, but the fact that it has taken shape and survived through the years is an unmistakable indication that it addresses a tension, explicit or latent, but real. Its persistence underscores the fact that the black world subscribes to it. In other words, when a story survives in folklore, it expresses in some way a region of the local soul. What is he saying? People will argue that this anecdote has not been verified. His story has not been verified.
Okay.
But the fact that it has taken shape and survived through the years is an unmistakable indication that it addresses a tension, explicit or latent, but real. Its persistence underscores the fact that the black world subscribes to it. In other words, when a story survives in folklore, it expresses in some way a region of the, quote, local soul, unquote. What is he saying?
Saying that though it's not like truly, may not be truly from that part or that region, it had survived a long time, so therefore it could be.
Sounds like they're saying someone originally told that story to that specific person, and that specific person told that one person, and it kept going, but the story like slowly gets a little different. But the original person that told the story, the story that came from him didn't die yet, but it started to get like a little confusing after a little while, because they don't know whether it's like true or not.
Okay, so basically, what is the purpose of folklore?
Folklore is to tell the story and get the true meaning out of the story.
and also keep it alive.
Folklore keeps things alive by explaining aspects of life. So what he is saying is that the fact that a story will survive, whether it be true or not true, indicates that it has some truth that people resonate with as far as living their lives. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a John Edgar Wideman. He wrote the foreword in Zora Neale Hurston's Every Tongue Got to Confess. I'm still reading that book, by the way. I got it on audiobook. If y'all want to listen to it with me, let me know.
Alright.
It says these narratives from the southern states instruct us that talk functions in African American communities as a means of having fun, getting serious, establishing credibility and consensus, securing identity, negotiating survival, keeping hope alive, suffering and celebrating the power language bestows. Do I need to read it again? These narratives from the southern states instruct us that the talk functions in African American communities as a means of having fun, getting serious, establishing credibility and consensus, securing identity, negotiating survival, keeping hope alive, suffering, and celebrating the power of language bestows. What is it saying? What is he saying?
Pretty much like keeps something alive in that one place where it does not like go anywhere, and like make sure it just stays there, whether it changes or not.
He's saying that they're telling stories that could be happy, sad, or like somehow horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But they're keeping them alive and thriving.
So what he's saying is the storytelling and the oral tradition in the African American culture is very important to the culture and the lives that the people in the culture live. Y'all got it?
Yeah.
Okay. What you say?
Why do you do that?
What?
And then
So I can flip the pages? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll read 2 more and then we'll stop here.
okay.
Because it's a whole lot in the philosophy reign. So we'll be back to continue with the philosophy because there's a lot of authors that had a lot to say. All right. So here we go. My lasting memories of my grandmother are of her telling me stories. I know that she told folk tales and fairy tales from many parts of the world. I cried when she told Anderson's Little Match Girl. It was so beautiful and so sad. But my favorites, and I'm sure they were hers as well, were the Bear Rabbit stories. I howled with laughter when Bear Rabbit asked the tar baby, "And how does your symptoms satiate?" Her mother had told her the stories, and she told them to me with love and affection as she sat in her favorite rocking chair in the middle of a large old-fashioned kitchen. It was a way for her to entertain me as she watched her cooking. Small, helpless Bear Rabbit always defeated his adversaries, the large animals, with his wit, humor, and wisdom. In my smallness, I related to the clever little hare who could always get out of the most difficult situation with his sharp wit. This was written by Augusta Baker. What is she talking about?
She's talking about when the grandmother was reading the book to the to the child while watching her cooking. That the child can relate to the hair in each situation because in her mind she is the hair and she's smaller, but she can get out of situations using her head.
Okay. What's she talking about, Mel?
Pretty much like pretty much like relatable stuff happens, like where like just like what happens with what people be telling people on the internet. It's relatable to them, but they actually just like think about it again and like yeah, I'm just gonna avoid what just happened
there. Right. So she is recounting when her grandmother used to tell her folklore and stories. So have y'all ever heard of Aesop's fables?
No.
I'm pretty sure I heard it from somewhere, but I can't remember.
Y'all heard the story of the tortoise and the hare?
Yes.
That's an Aesop fable.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bear Rabbit.
I thought that was a random story.
Those are fables that come from a collection of stories. I think I got a book of Aesop fables up there. And start reading y'all that too. Bear Rabbit would be Aesop. Or y'all remember Anansi? Anansi the spider?
Yeah.
Anansi the spider is the storyteller in African folklore. Bear Rabbit, I guess in a way he could be a storyteller, but Bear Rabbit is more of a character in the story. But he would be the one that brings the lessons. He's the trickster and all of that. And all of those sorts of things get into culture. And the more you understand the culture, you learn the culture, you develop in the culture, you'll understand how all those things kind of tie into each other. But Bear Rabbit has a lot of stories because Bear Rabbit be into a lot of different things.
How?
I would, and I cannot confirm this, but I would say that Bear Rabbit would be Bugs Bunny.
That would make sense.
What?
That would make sense.
How?
But
There's no way Bugs Bunny would have been that old.
could be.
What does folklore do?
Pretty much like age is like,
A story carries on, right?
yeah, pretty much like age is like very long.
Right. So Bugs Bunny could very well have come from ancient folklore stories.
That's scary.
It's scary. Why is it scary?
I can imagine how much wrinkles that book would have had.
Oh, wow. We have another one by Ralph Ellison. He wrote The Invisible Man. I had to read that in high school. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but let's go. He said, it would be misleading, however, to leave the impression that all of the process of writing was so solemn. For in fact, there was a great deal of fun along the way. I knew that I was composing a work of fiction, a work of literary art, and one that would allow me to take advantage of the novel's capacity for telling the truth while actually telling a lie, which is the Afro-American folk term for an improvised story. Having worked in barbershops where that form of oral art flourished, I knew that I could draw up upon the rich culture of the folktale as well as that of the novel. And that being uncertain of my skill, I would have to improvise upon my materials in the manner of a jazz musician putting a musical theme into a wild starburst of metamorphosis. What is he describing?
He's describing that if he's when he's making a story, he can also learn other things to make his story better, and also change it along the way to get it better.
What is he talking about?
Pretty much like making something like some type of like book or video about that specific thing that he heard about. Then he like edits it into something like what the generation would pretty much watch or something, and make it a little better for the generation or like the person.
Okay, so where did he take his inspiration from?
The barbershop.
And what was going on in the barbershop?
Where multiple of the fiction tales were being told.
What was being happened? What do we call that? What was happening in the barbershop?
Stories were being told.
And what we called it? What do we call the art of storytelling?
Folklore.
And what do we call it before we call it folklore? How do we pass down stories to generations?
You tell them the story.
How? And what is it called?
Storytelling.
Or what is the cultural word?
Oral stories.
Oral what?
Oral.
Oral culture.
Oral culture, not stories.
Oral tradition.
Oh.
Oral tradition. Oral tradition is how we pass down stories. Okay? So, we'll read one of the stories from where you wanted to come from. You said you wanted to do the workmen's, right?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, I guess I could also let you pick which one you want to Okay, we have Bear Rabbit's Box with apologies to Joel Chandler Harris, The Donkey, the Dog, the Cat, and the Rooster, Jack and the King, Plantation Courtship, Echoes from a Plantation Party, Hags and Their Ways, The Conquest of a Hag, Why the Clay is Red, Fish Stories, Two Ghost Stories, Haunted House, Buried Treasure, The Six Witches, The Witch's Cats, The Boy and the Ghost, Mr. Claytor's Story and Mrs. Spinney's Story, Playing Godfather, Flower of Dew, and Soul of Soul.
Bear Rabbit.
Alright, so we're going to go to page 240. Folklore from the Southern Workman and the Journal of American Folklore. It says, in 1893, Alice Mabel Bacon went to Hampton Institute in Virginia to teach and serve as administrator. The Hampton Institute, now known as Hampton University, is a private historically black school founded by the leaders of the African American Missionary Association. Booker T. Washington was one of its earliest students. The school's mission was to train and educate teachers, and it was located at a site that had once been a refuge for slaves freeing the Confederacy. The daughters of a New Haven, Connecticut white abolitionist minister, Alice Bacon, quickly grew into a role at the institution where her sister was serving as assistant principal. Bacon became the editor of the Southern Workman, the journal of the Hampton Institute, and she launched a folklore and ethnology department for the purpose of building bridges between educated blacks and those they had left behind in the rural South. Folklore constituted for her body of knowledge passed down from generation to generation and included folktales, customs, autobiographical accounts, survival of African traditions, ceremonies and superstitions, proverbs and sayings, and songs both sacred and secular. Bacon declared that the members of the group would collect and preserve all traditions and customs peculiar to the Negroes. She recognized that the work could not be done by white people, but rather by intelligent and educated colored people who are at work all through the South amongst the more ignorant of their own race. In 1893, the Hampton Folklore Society, composed mainly of African American members, was founded. It met regularly for 6 years and published monthly columns of folklore and ethnology section in the Southern Workman. By the time Alice Bacon left the Institute in 1899, a rich repertoire had been put together and documented in the columns of the Hampton Institute monthly publication. The Hampton folklorists believed that what they were collecting contained the beginnings of all arts and sciences and ceremonies and religions. Foundational and fundamental to understanding a culture, folk tales have been passed down from generation to the next as a verbal tradition that was poetic rather than scientific, abounding in metaphors, figures, similes, imaginative flights, humorous designations, saws, and sayings. Still, the students were to engage with folklore in the spirit of scientific inquiry and take a critical view of the superstitions, songs, lore, and wisdom that constituted folk traditions of a rural population. Okay? This is what Hampton University, that's what it is now. That's what it looked like back then.